Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I visit with on this channel, be sure and hit the like button below and also subscribe to the channel. Martin Stephenson is an English singer, songwriter, and guitarist who began busking as a teenager and playing in various groups before fronting his own band, the Daintees, in 1982. The band had an initial run from 1982 to 1992, disbanding after releasing 4 albums of material. But thankfully, that wasn't the end of the story for the Daintees, as they reformed in 2000. Since that time, there have been some 13 albums, and the band has been playing together ever since. Martin incorporates a wide variety of genres into the music. You'll hear folk, jazz, blues, country, reggae, and even some skiffle influences throughout both the Daintees and Martin's solo material. The latest Daintees album, You Belong to Blue, was released just last year. Martin has also released a slew of solo albums beginning in 1993, with his latest, Hybrid Society, coming out earlier this year. Well, welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you for being here and taking time out to visit.
Thank you.
Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Durham. It was a very strange place. It had these bars up at the window. Durham jail.
Oh.
Sure. But no, it's just a very small town. In fact, Jimi Hendrix, when Jimmy used to stay with Chaz Chandler in the 60s, when Chaz brought Jimmy over, he loved Durham. He really loved it because it's like a stop just before you hit Newcastle.
Yes.
And it's very very Harry Potter, you know, it's got a...
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's true. It's got a lot of history there. You're right. Well, do you have fond childhood memories growing up? You remember hearing music in the household when you were young?
Yes. My dad, he was, I mean, it's strange, you know, because the workforce don't get a choice, you know, they're down the pit. I was brought up in a mining community. Ironically, 5 doors up from me in my little street, Gainsborough Avenue, was Brian Ferry.
Oh, is that right?
Singing with Roxy Music, you know.
Right.
But he was like 10 years older than me, so I would only see Brian when I was a little young boy getting on the bus to go to school, and my sister was swooning at him as he was waiting to go to college, you know, with his folder. But he was kind of our glorious export from our little village, Washington Town and Weir. But it's also linked with Concord in North Carolina, Concord in Washington Town and Weir. George Washington spent his formative years in the Old Hall, which was where he was brought up for his first 8 or 9 years.
Right, that's right.
Jimmy Carter came there when I left school. He was planted a tree. How are the lads? You know, there's a bit of a yeah. But on the way from school to school, I would pass a pit. On the left-hand side, Washington Pit.
Okay.
So sometimes I would pass the miners standing warm in their hands on strike.
Yeah.
To big metal bins with fires in, you know.
Oh, keeping themselves warm, yeah.
So I'd be a young boy passing my menfolk.
Right.
Of my community on the way to school, you know, my menfolk, which is my father was like my grandfather, all of them were down the pit. On the right-hand side, just up the hill, was Washington Old Hall.
Oh,
you know,
right
and
there.
every year I'm still playing there. We do a little concert every year in the church where my mother was born, next door, you know, where she was married. It's interesting. So it had a village-like community, with a lot of poverty, you know, but a tight little village, and it just expanded into a new town in the 70s.
Okay.
It had very American, like, it was called it got changed to Concord. It had numbers, you know. It happened in East Kilbride outside of Glasgow. They have these new towns and expand, but the heart of it was still like a little village, and it's still the same. It has that village centre, you know. I go and look at the tree now and again that Jimmy planted, and it's colossal.
Oh, it's huge. I imagine. Well, that's nice that it had that kind of community, like you said, a small community feel to it. Yes, yes. Well, do you remember what kind of music that you first heard,
Yeah,
in
the
the
first thing I kind of got connected to was waltzes, and ironically, when I got into the guitar when I was a little older, I used to learn waltzes for some reason. Even when I was studying a bit of Doc Watson, I'd learn a waltz.
oh, love
My
Doc Watson.
dad always played Strauss, and because I was just talking to this to Anna about recently. My dad and another guy called Arthur McAdam, who was my best friend's father. They were tough guys. You wouldn't want to cross
You don't
them.
want
Like,
to
they
mess
were
with
real
him.
heavy, but they were honourable, nice men. They were nice to their wives and their children. But you wouldn't. They could box these guys.
Oh yeah.
But when they retired, they suddenly took up creative paths because they weren't allowed to. They would leave school, go straight down the pit. And Arthur McAdam, who was a real handy man with his fists, became a photographer. And
Yeah.
he would wander around. He only died a couple of years ago. I remember my friend Peter, and we went for a drink with our fathers when we were in our early 30s.
Yes.
We were getting their pints for them. They were sitting with their caps and their glasses on. They would just go, "What a couple of idiots. They've turned out nothing." You couldn't please them. But they were
Right.
very funny people. And they were lads
Yeah.
who never had a chance, where
Right.
they did everything to give us,
Yeah.
the young generation, the chance to try and escape the council houses and try and do something new.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah, that's good that they were that, that way, wanted to kind of, again, like all parents try to do that.
Yes.
But when you come from an oppressed setting like that, that it's a little more difficult. But
Yes.
yeah, that's yeah, a little tongue in cheek, like you said, talking about you, bringing the pints,
Oh yeah.
but they
If I,
loved
if I
you.
was to do it, if I was to get in touch with him from beyond the grave,
Yeah, yeah.
the first thing he would send the message back is, "Get a job." I'm 63, and he would still tell me that.
He would still tell you that. All right. They always want the best for you, right? Well, well, do you come from a musical family at all? Either one
Well,
of your parents?
I remember my dad, because he has a Scottish side to his family that he was very proud of.
Yeah.
The first time I thought it was a bit strange was there was a football game out in the 60s called Subutio.
Okay.
And you could flick these little footballers and you could have a game of football. And he would make me, I bought a few different teams, so I would have an Everton team, but it looked the same strip as Scotland.
Okay. Okay.
And then there was like a Tottenham team that would look like the England strip.
Oh,
So
all right.
I remember once he'd come back from the pub and he forced me, like I was only 10, it was England versus Scotland.
Yeah.
He was trying to kill me. And I thought, this is a bit weird. Then we went on holiday as a young family in a little car. And when we crossed the border, he started speaking Scottish, like, "Okay, do you know where the garage is around here?" Me and my sister were like, "He's off his trolley." I mean, he was very funny. But then he picked a hitchhiker. The only hitchhiker he ever picked up was a guy with a kilt.
Oh, is that right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
he was like a Scotophobe. And one day I made this little journey with my dad, and I might have been 9 or 10. And he says, "Me and you are going to do a road trip." We got in a little car. We drove 2.5 hours, 3 hours to the Glasgow area,
Mhm.
north of where we live, to a place called, what was it called? It was near Campsie. It was a little village. It was where his mother was born, her mother, and he had these two uncles, and they were teetotal guys
Yeah.
called Bill and Jim. And
Okay.
I had a pub in Lennoxtown. It was called Lennoxtown.
Yeah.
And a friend just gave me a book about Lennoxtown, old photographs. And we went to this house, and they were like his Scottish family. And they were so beautiful, so welcoming. And they lived above the pub. There was a piano. I never knew my dad played piano. He
Yeah.
goes in there and he's playing, of course, Scottish tunes. They're all getting drunk and drinking whiskey. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow. But years and years later, when I went through like a kind of it didn't seem positive at the time, but it was a rebirth. breakdown, rebirth, disengagement from materials and everything.
Right.
The first thing I did to feel secure was go north.
Go up there.
Yeah. And I'm still up there, you know.
You're still there, yeah. You know, I
Yeah.
have one side of my family is Scotch Irish,
Uh-huh.
more Scottish than Irish. I used to think that it was more Irish growing up, but then I did kind of, you know, the tree, you know, the lineage search, you know,
Yeah.
and I found out that it was actually more Scottish. And
Where you from?
well, see, I don't know. I need to do a little more digging, you know, to find that out. We did unearth a coat of arms, and I don't know where it is. I had a copy of it, you know,
Yes.
and I don't know where it is because when we moved, it got put in the closet or something somewhere. But yeah, I do know on one side of my family I am. So I think I have an affinity for Scottish heritage and, you know, that kind of you know, mindset and the music especially.
They're
So
great people. They're hilarious people.
oh, they are. And we
Yeah.
seem to get along real well. I've, you know, interviewed a few on here and we seem to really hit it off really well.
God, that's
So,
great.
yeah,
No, they're great. They're great people, you know.
right, right. Well, I was mentioning the football game that you had. I was
Yes.
watching recently a documentary on Madden, you know, John Madden football,
Oh, yes.
and talking about the early games. We used to have an electric football, and it was like this kind of, it was made out of aluminum. It was a field, and you
Yes.
turn it on, plug it into the wall, and it would vibrate. It was so ancient, and you know, and what you did, you had these little players that you put on there, and you would turn it on, and they would just vibrate and move around, and hopefully you would have one of the players make it to the end zone, you know, eventually. And then foosball. Do they still have foosball? Do you know what foosball is? They may,
No.
I think they might have had them in pubs too. It's the
Oh.
one where you have the handles on the ends,
Oh, bar football. Yeah.
and that's what it's called.
We
And then
call
you
it
flip
bar football, yeah.
right, and you
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to
That's
try
still
to.
popular, actually.
Okay,
Parts, yeah.
we called it foosball, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was still around. Yeah,
You can
it's
still buy some, you know, in antique shops as well. You can pick them up, you know. Yeah.
oh, okay. You can still
If you
pick
look
them.
around, you know, you can still pick them up, like antique ones, you know.
Is that right? Is that right?
So I don't know if they manufacture them now. They probably don't manufacture them
They're,
now.
they're just, yeah, the
Yeah.
relics. Wow. Okay. I don't think they're still going on with that. Let me ask you one thing off track too. I was doing crossword puzzle. I always do crossword puzzle, and usually one in three or four will have a reference to an English or British name. And this, do you know what a poodle faker is? Poodle faker.
A poodle faker, a
Yeah.
pretentious poodle.
Yeah.
It's not quite a poodle. It's pretentious.
Right.
A poodle faker. You know that one, Anna?
Yeah.
Labradoodle.
No. It's a poodle. A poodle faker is a ladies' man. A ladies' man.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes.
I would never.
See, I'd never heard that. I had not heard that one. And it said a British English name or nickname for a ladies' man. And it's a poodle, like the dog.
Yes.
You know, faker.
Yes.
So yeah,
They would get trollop over here, trollop.
Yes.
Or shifty.
Right. So that must have been ages ago that they used that. Well, how about, can you recall the first single or album that you bought yourself?
Yeah, I remember my mum taking me there was a lovely shop in it. The sad thing is it's just closed in Newcastle upon Tyne, in the town. We'd call it the town.
Okay.
It's about 7 miles on the bus. And we would call it was called Windows, JG Windows.
Oh,
And it had a musical instrument department, it had a record store, very old-fashioned family business, lots of floors, very Victorian. You would go into this like market. Beautiful. It's still there, you know, but the shop's closing down. And at the windows, you would go, at the big windows, you'd see some guitars and records and things, and song sheets. in Mark Knopfler. There's so many of us when we were young would stand at windows, glaring in, looking at the record sleeves, and, whatever it is. Knopfler saw his first Stratocaster in the window, and so my mum took me there as a little boy, and she bought me. She allowed me. She was buying "My Sweet Lord" by George Harrison because I think she had a big crush on him.
Oh yes.
But that she also bought "Stay With Me, Lay With Me" by Blue Mink, which blew my mind at one point. But I think she allowed me to pick a song by Wizard.
Oh, Roy Wood.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I just loved his face. He was frightening.
Yeah.
I thought he was great.
Yeah.
Ballpark Incident.
Oh, right.
It was one of the early ones,
Yeah. Right.
So that was. I think that's the first single I bought. Well, my mum bought it for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Was the guitar the first instrument that you learned to play?
Yeah, it was the first instrument I got really interested in. My sister got one for her birthday, and I was kind of in awe of it, really. I never really knew how to play for a bit. But when I was, I didn't realize it was going to happen when I was 11. I had a friend called Willie McHugh. He kind of lived just down the street, and we would just all run around and play and, jump about and stuff. And one night I went around the side of his house because you could run in and out of each other's houses. It was a very safe community.
Right. Left the doors open. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I ran around the side of his house, his older brother Joe was sitting on the steps outside. And what had happened was, I didn't realize at the time, he'd just come out and he was 19. He seemed like a man, He was 19 years old and he'd come out to give his sister some space with her boyfriend. It was like a Sunday night. Their parents were out for a drink or whatever. He was just being a gentleman.
Yeah.
But he was sitting on the steps and he was a very handsome, incredible guy, and I just come running around the corner. I was going to go into Willie's kitchen and get a glass of water. There's Joe sitting on the step. I'd never met Joe before, actually, and I just stopped. It was like a Boo Radley moment. I was just a boy, and he looked at me, and I thought he was going to tell me off, and he kind of stood up and towered above me. He was like a god.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to go, ruh, 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 and he just went, sorry. And he was like Boo Radley or something, and he just walked past me. And I was just and he walked past me. And I can even tell you what clothes he had on. He had brown corduroys, dark brown corduroys. He had a dark green Fred Perry shirt. He looked very Italian looking, actually, and his hair was shaped up the sides. I found out later he was a great athlete, very bright. He was suffering from depression at the time. I had no idea. And he just walked off around the corner, and I was just standing there. And then Willie came running around. I went, who was that? And he went, oh, it's my brother Joe. He gets a bit sad. That's how he described that we were just kids,
Yeah.
And that would be the only time I would ever meet Joe, because a week later he walked into a field on the outskirts of our community and he doused himself with petrol and burned himself to a cinder, and he was gone. He was found by someone walking a dog. They thought he was a log or something. It was so sad. And I remember my mother weeping. The whole community. Brian Ferry would have been a similar age to Joe. He would have known him, all of that. And what happened was that went deep into me. That meeting, it was a short meeting, but it went deep. And I didn't know, but when my sister got a guitar and I eventually started twiddling with the guitar, I realized I was carrying a song, my first song. Way before I played an instrument, the song is born.
Right.
In fact, now when I write songs, I don't even bother with the instrument until I've connected with higher consciousness, because I want to make sure it's clean.
Yeah.
And it's beyond my ego, it has a bigger picture, so, right. But I didn't realize I was given this powerful thing. And at the age of 14, then I wrote it as a song, became a song. But that was my first song. And, I never shared it. I hid it until I was 30 years old.
Oh.
After me 4 major albums were done.
Yeah.
And then the universe had a chat with me and said, look, we know you. You know us. We know it's right down there in the bottom of the cauldron.
Right.
You know, you're going to have to share this because everything that you've got piled upon it,
Right.
no matter whether it's had some commercial success or not, this pile of songs that you have it hidden underneath
Right.
is like the Leaning Tower of Pisa on the cosmic level. Maybe not on the physical level here, which I call the university.
Yeah.
And the universe actually guided me into bringing it out and sharing it at the age of 30. And that was what really gave me a vision of what I was about, actually.
Right. So that was what you would call a cathartic moment, huh?
Yeah, and just of rebalancing and because you go on a journey, you either go on a journey of trying to piss everybody off for the rest of your life or trying to please everybody for you.
Right.
Either you have an attitude or you're
Right.
trying to please.
Right.
You know, it's getting a balance
Yeah.
and realizing what your mission is, what the bigger mission is, rather than your own ego.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. I think the best music and musicians are the ones that speak from what you're talking about, from what's inside, because
Yeah.
that's what we all connect with, the humanity, you know,
Yes.
and what we can all relate to, you know.
Yes.
So I think that's very important, you know. And
Yes.
those are the types of songs that I, you know, gravitate towards.
Yes.
So
Yes.
definitely. Well,
Yeah.
talk about you started at 15 busking. That's pretty early. Yeah. Where did
I
you
remember just
start?
getting on the bus and going through to Newcastle, and I think I was doing an Elvis song or something like a Blue Moon of Kentucky, you know, and I didn't even know what I was doing half the time, but I just felt this feeling to get on the bus, and usually on a sunny day,
Okay.
even at this age, I get that same feeling.
You get that. Okay.
See the sky.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that's outside of the industry experience. It's much bigger than that, you know. It's like wanting to go fishing, you know. And then
Right.
Joan Collins and said, "We can't be going fishing. I've got a fur coat to look." Well, fuck your fur coat, Joan. Get it off. Sell it. We need the money.
Right. You have that connection. There's that connection there. Yeah, with the sun. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that you'll always have that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when you see somebody, when you're trying to fish or you're trying to be a gardener, and somebody comes along and they're just doing it effortlessly and they show you
Right.
like an elder or something. I remember I was busking on the street once on a Saturday afternoon, and I heard these horns. I heard like a saxophone and a trombone. So I saw these three students walking towards us, and they were like much older than me. They were like in their early 20s. I thought they were really old. They just had a bit of facial hair. They were probably young lads, 21-year-old.
Right.
And they came over and they stopped, and one of them they had the horns out, and they didn't even have cases or anything. They were just walking around with the horns. And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to do a bit of busking." There was about 10 pence in the case, you know, and I was like struggling away.
Yeah.
And they looked at me, and they must have felt a bit sorry for me. And they said, "Well, do you want us to play along with you?" I said, "Well, I don't know what do we do. I've never played with brass before. You're like proper musicians. What do I do?" He says, "Well, just play, and we'll play along with you." So, all right, okay. So I started playing, and they were amazing. Within like 5 minutes, we were surrounded. I mean, it was unbelievable. We were just surrounded by people, and the money was not that I was into money, but it was like a biblical experience. The money, the case was just full, and there was money all around the case. And then suddenly they stopped playing. This is like a half an hour, and I was shaking. And the leader looked at me. He said, "Well, I think we're going to push off now." I said, "Well, what are we going to do about all of this? I mean, look, what we'll do about that." And he looked at me. And he looked at the money again. He looked back at me. He says, "It's all right. We'll get some more." And I thought, "Wow."
Yeah.
And they were like elephants. They
Oh.
just drifted up towards the monument, and I was like standing there. And I saw all the money. I thought, "I'll get mugged."
Right.
So I just closed the case, put the guitar on my neck,
Yeah.
put the rest in my pockets, and got the bus back home.
Right.
And sneaked in the front door, up the stairs into my bedroom.
Right.
You know, put the guitar in the bed, and it was like, it wasn't the money. It was just, it said, it taught me that if abundant, the possibility of abundance, the possibility of not needing the system to do what you want to do.
Right.
And you know that sax player, I worked with him 10 years later.
Yeah. Did you? Did you?
And he didn't
Yeah.
remember me at all. And I said, "You're the guy." He went, what are you on about? I said, "You're the guy." What guy?
Yeah, it was like they were paying it forward even at that time.
Yeah.
You know.
Fearless.
Right,
And
right.
I always think of them
Yeah,
when people impregnate you to try to put their pressure on you. They're
yeah,
fierce. It's
right,
like I feel with love and compassion the problems of others
right.
without getting caught up in their situation. They're offering them messages they need for their growth.
Yes,
I
yes.
try not to put my stuff onto other people when I'd rather not be a coward and say, actually, this is my stuff. It's like
Right.
put it on and whenever I'm feeling a little bit imbalanced or pressure, I think of that. And you know what? I've always been taken care of. Even when I give everything up, I give the house, my house, everything, I give it all away.
Yeah.
I started getting my angels started coming to people
Right.
that were being cut off by industrial types
Yes.
who
Yes.
didn't really, they were there because of commercial reasons, not because of heart connection, soul connection, you know.
Right. Yes, and see, and that's why you've been taken care of, you know. You do it for the right reason, you know.
And as you know yourself there, Greg,
Yeah,
sometimes when you're being taken care of, it doesn't
right.
feel like it.
Right.
When you're in the car wash, it hurts at times.
You're right about that. You're right about that, you know. I go through times like that over and over again. Yeah. I just have to, you know, go by faith, like you said,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
that
a great word, man.
that
Trust, you know.
dad trust that everything's going to be okay. Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, uh, what about so you began busking. Uh, what what bands were you a part of prior to the Dainties?
Yeah, probably around about 16, the punk thing for me, 16, 17, the punk thing exploded in 1977, 676.
Yeah.
But I kind of became active in 77, really. I really became active and joined the punk movement. It was just like a circus that was coming past, and I was in.
Yeah.
I'd been a table tennis player from the age of 11 till I was 15.
Oh, is that right? I used to
And,
play ping pong. We call it
yeah,
ping pong. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I used to be pretty good at it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You know,
Uh,
I'd had a coach, and my coach was a Doors fan,
uh-huh. Okay.
and he was 27, and I had a guru and a coach from the age of 11 till I was 15. I was very blessed.
Yeah.
Just at the local scout group, this guy
Yeah.
Jim Sixsmith with a beard and the curly hair, and he was a wild man. He'd been over in Czechoslovakia when they had the rush, you know, and all that.
Oh,
He was a
right.
very active guy, you know, and he was like my older brother that I never had, and he got me into the door. I remember when I was 11, I was going on a trip, and he put his radio cassette on my knee because I was nervous and shy. He put his radio cassette on my knee and pressed play. He says, "Listen to that." We were
Yeah.
heading to Raby Castle at the Scouts camping, you know, and I
Yeah.
just got Manzarak. Diddle.
Oh, okay.
Straight
Yeah.
into the central chakra, you know, like
Right.
that just exported me. If I ever had the chance, I know Ray's dead now, but I always wanted to shake Ray's hand
Yeah.
just
Yes.
for that moment, not for anything else.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I had like an apprenticeship from 11 till I was 15 of music
Yeah.
education. Then when I joined the punk, that
Okay.
was when I started trying to do it. You see, it was a bit like skiffle.
Right.
If you were from my background, you thought musicians were gods. They were like
Yeah.
special educated people. You know,
Yeah.
you were even told out at school to put you on the triangle. You know,
Yeah.
you wouldn't get anywhere near a guitar. You know,
Yeah.
so at 16, the great thing about punk was
Yeah.
if you knew a half a chord and
Right.
you sound like a barking seal,
It
they
was
would have
okay.
you in the band.
Right.
If you were any better, they would tell you to go away.
Right. It was that DIY
Yeah, and they
movement.
let you
Yeah.
in, you know, and
Right.
suddenly everybody got a job, you know.
Right.
That
Right.
was the
Right.
only reason I played music. And thank God that Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious, the whole lot of them, they were brilliant. They were hilarious. They were nutters, you know.
Right, right, right. Well, okay, well, get us up to speed. Talk about the formation of the Dainties.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you, I was in a
Oh,
couple of bands. I was in a band called Strange Relations,
okay.
78 to 79. I was in a band called the Cosmic Outbursts.
Oh, okay.
Before that. People were always older. I was like 16, 17. My cousin was with me.
Yeah.
And the other guys were usually 19 to 22 years old. They were
It all,
also older.
yeah.
But ironically, me and my cousin learned the guitar parts to Another Girl, Another Planet,
Yeah,
the
right,
only ones.
right, right.
And that got us into the cosmic. If it was, I always tell John Perry, the guitarist who did that solo,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for you, I would never have got into the cosmic outbursts. And he would say, "Who were they?" I'd say, "Exactly."
Yeah,
Nobody knows.
right, right.
But
Yeah.
it set me on my path, you know.
Did you with those bands, did you record anything at all?
Yeah, we did with
Yeah.
Strange Relations. I've got all these odd little weird. I mean, the singer, I was in love with the singer. He was like a 20-year-old misfit with a pointy nose, really skinny, with dyed blonde hair. He used to
Uh-huh.
get chased off all the thugs, you know, they wanted to beat him. He was
Yeah.
called Steve Minto, and then he became Steve Zodiac. But he was like he'd probably been into Gong and Steve
Oh,
Pillage before all of that stuff.
all
And then
right.
when he got a bit of punk, he got into we got into the monochrome set.
Oh, monochrome set.
Monochrome set, yeah.
Right,
And
right,
it was
right.
just left of field. There were,
Oh, yes,
but
yes.
all the influence that Andy Warhol and Lou Reed was cutting through in the New York punk scene. So I was
Right.
just soaking all that. I mean, I loved Richard Helmer Voidoid as a 15, 16-year-old,
Oh, yeah.
obsessed with CBG. I've never been there, but, Tom Verlaine, adored Tom.
Oh, yeah.
This guy
Helper.
was he
Yeah,
was a Tom Verlaine type
yeah,
guy, very mysterious, weird,
yeah.
and I was his guitarist when I was 16. I was his wingman, and I was just, if I could have done that for the rest of my life, and now he's a balding banjo player. He doesn't even
Right.
write songs now. We laugh about it,
Yeah. I wanted to comment on that too. When you're young, somebody that's like you said at 20 years old, wow, they're old,
Yeah.
like you were talking about. And then when middle age is like ancient, and
Oh gosh.
and that's
So
where
where are we now, Greg?
that's where we are. Yeah, right. Time to put them to pasture, right?
Yeah.
Time to, not yet, not yet. Well, I did want to tell you, well, talk about the original members uh,
Yeah.
and the Dainties and how you guys,
Yeah.
got together.
Yeah. In 1980, I had a friend called, 79, 1980, I had a friend called Graham Anderson, who was known as Shipcoat, because he lived near the Shipcoat Baths in the part of Gateshead. He was known as Shipcoat. He was a character. And his father was a jazz trombone player. And I met Graham on the bus. We become friends through music. At the time, Joy Division was coming out. Postcard Records was kicking off in Glasgow. It was a very exciting time, 1980.
Yeah.
And I convinced him into playing a tea chest, which I made for him, which inspired him to get a double bass all
Oh,
in that year. And then he started learning double bass, and he actually progressed really quickly. But he had a phenomenal musical knowledge because of his father, jug band music from the 20s in America. He knew about Slim Gaillard, and us being mates, at our age, you're like sponges and you're just soaking up each other's knowledge. And I didn't realize how important he would become in my life, but he was the first bass player in the Daintees, Graham Anderson, who went on to start the Jumping and Hot Club in Newcastle, which is a roots the Avid brothers have played there. Everybody's gone through him,
yeah.
and he's still there. He's still good. I'm doing two shows from on the 22nd and 23rd at these little club, and he ended up as a promoter of roots music, especially American roots music.
Okay.
In the mid 80s, he would put Slim Gaillard on when he was still alive.
Yeah.
So all the students from all over England, the heads would come down to this little Jumping Hot Club gig, all with their weight gear on and stuff, and whistling Gaylord, playing the piano with the back of his hands.
Yeah,
It was just so key. And he would bring Blind Willie. He would say, "I've got Blind Willie Littlefield coming over. He's a bit down on his luck. He needs a bit of money. We're bringing him over. We're bringing the Roaring Lion from Jamaica, a gangster from Jamaica who was 80 years old with a bright yellow suit and hat,
Yeah.
So he was doing all this stuff, and he's just continued to do so. I mean, so many American artists know him on their journey coming into the UK, on their grassroots journey in development,
Right.
So he was the first bass player in the Daintees initially, but then he kind of drifted off and started doing his own thing. And I met a guy in 1980, same year. A lot of stuff was going on. There'd also been a guy called Christopher Mordy who'd played in the Daintees, who I was in the punk bands with. And then eventually was settled on a guy in 1980 called Anthony Dunn. Dunn, who plays on all the records that you have there.
Right.
And I just met him at a party in Sunderland. I borrowed the guitar from the Steve Zodiac guy and went through to Sunderland and ended up at a party. And the bass player was just sitting playing Bob Dylan songs on an acoustic guitar. And I thought, wow. And we ended up the next week we did a gig with double bass and guitar. And then a few years later, he introduced me to his brother, who was a guy called Gary Dunn, his brother.
Okay.
But just before him, that was a guitarist. And just before him, we had a guitarist called John Steele.
All right.
John. They were all northern people.
Yeah.
From the northeast, really.
Yeah. You guys must have had some good chemistry working well together.
Well, like this year we nearly lost Gary Dunn, and I've known and worked with Gary since 1980, and he's just a natural player. He had the Jimi Hendrix hair when he was young.
Yeah.
But he could just play anything. Like when he was 12, 13, he could play all the free stuff, the Hendrix stuff. He's just gifted,
Yeah.
And when we first played with him, we thought he was too good to be in our band. He was actually too good, But this year, he nearly passed away with cancer, and he beat cancer.
Yeah.
And now he's like in this other zone. He's playing some fantastic guitar. I'm going to send you a clip later on called "Long Forgotten," and it's a lovely clip. You can see him from the side, and he's playing this guitar.
Right.
It's just, we thought we'd lost him, and he's here, and he's back, and he's just like putting this beautiful music out.
Right.
It's a lovely feeling. You probably know that with friends. People you've done a long journey with.
Yes.
And you're still there,
And he has like a new lease on life.
Yeah.
And he appreciates it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, you got to go down to that really low place, really, to really appreciate it. Yeah. Wow, that's something. That's a nice story. I'm glad he beat that. Yeah. Yes. Well, I have to tell you, I came to you in the Dainties via Prefab Sprout.
Yes.
And the Cane Gang.
Oh, wow.
Another kitchenware. Yeah. So I was into those earlier, but then because I liked them so much, I saw an album of yours, the one that I'll bring it. I'll hold it up in a little bit. But I said, look at the label. Oh, kitchenware. Okay. I bet I trust that label now. So I bet this is going to be some good material. And I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
That's nice.
From what I heard. Yeah.
I did a gig with the King weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
An anniversary gig,
Is that right?
When I was in the dressing room, in comes Martin McAloon.
Yeah.
His brother with the white hair, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Oh, I know. Almost didn't recognize him, And then, how is Patty doing? Because I know he had a walker, last time I saw him, and
he's had health issues. He has. He's an incredible man.
Right.
He's just a complete. If there ever was a Howard Hughes of songwriting, it's got to be him. Like, it's quite a. But he's very funny, Paddy. I mean, my memories of Paddy. I haven't seen Paddy for a long time. Funnily enough, last time I saw Paddy was when I was moving to Scotland, and my dad was seeing me on the train,
Right.
and we were at the Central Station. Must have been 1996. It was a flooded station, and I'm just trying to say goodbye to my dad, and it was an emotional moment.
Yeah.
And this guy with the long hair and the glasses and the hair is coming over. I'm like, oh, hang on, Dad, hang on. So I
Yeah.
go in my pocket to get a pound.
Yeah.
I just say, look, here you are, mate. I'm not being funny, but I'm saying to me, Dad, you know, because I thought he was going to do that. Oh.
You're right.
And
Right.
then when I got the pound, he grabbed me and he went, it's me. It was Paddy. I went, oh, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you about some of the early Daintees live gigs. What they were like, and maybe some of the bands that you played alongside or that you opened for.
Yeah. I remember we told Anna this one, but I remember we used to pick a van up at a place called Argyle Garage.
Okay.
And it was a good time, you know, the 80s, because there was a university circuit.
Right.
So you could hop onto that if you were half decent, and then you didn't have that much of an audience. You could at least scrape a kind of a journey around and up and down the country, and then try pick up some support. So I would say I did a gig in London with a band called the Smiths in 1982.
Never heard of it.
You never know. I wasn't sure whether in America. I know Morrissey's quite.
Oh yes, oh huge, yeah. I would have to be hiding in a cave for a long time to not have heard of them. Yeah.
We just saw them as a man. Sometimes in the Argyle garage van, the white Ford Transit, which was our vehicle, our Time Lord vehicle.
Yeah,
you know, the multi-dimensional, you know, spaceship. We would head off down the road, and every now and again we would see a Salford van hire, which was Manchester, and usually it would be a band, and you'd be passing, and you'd go like that, you know,
yeah.
or you'd go like
Yes.
that, or some be just bands passing on the motorway with nothing else to do.
Yes.
But we went down to London, and we got down there. I mean, we stopped. We were young and silly. I mean, I don't do anything now, but at the time we stopped and we picked some magic mushrooms on the way to the show.
Oh, great.
You know, we thought, we didn't have any concept of time. You know, it's about a 5-hour drive down. We eventually got down there. I was driving the van.
Yeah.
Away with the ferries. And I don't know how I got to Dingwalls. We went to this place called Dingwalls, and there was 3 bands on. There was the Smiths, the Daintees, and the Telephone Boxes. This band called the Telephone Boxes.
Okay.
And it was a tiny little dressing room. And we got there, and I think the Smiths must have sound checked.
Yeah.
And we went in there, and there was, you could tell a few people had been in, but there was all these daffodils on the table. And I didn't know who Morrissey was, the Smiths, anything.
Yeah.
And the bass player said, "Oh, well, the Camden Lock's just round the corner here. Why don't we get those daffodils?" And we took the daffodils and we were dropping them in the lock. It was like, wow. And then our manager eventually faces, "You idiots, you get back to the." We got back to the show because we were on before the Smiths, although the Smiths only had a 50. We all had our renter crowds.
Oh,
and we'd
okay.
been put on to try and fill a small venue up, you know.
Right.
The Smiths had about 50 disciples at that point, you know. They were just about to sign a rough trade and do whatever they did. And we did our little bit, but when we got back, Morrissey, his daffodils had gone, and he wasn't happy. But he threw a hissy fit, it wasn't very frightening. He goes, "Where's my?"
Right.
It wasn't like scary or anything. And I remember Johnny Marr just kind of go, just like, I probably think that's quite funny, you know.
Yeah.
And our bass player actually said to me, "Oh, should I deck him?" You know, no.
Yes.
I mean, we're just young kids in bands. Like they were from Manchester, we were from. If the football had been mentioned, it would have been off. You know, it was just very juvenile. But I
Did you know
remember,
if you look up in the dictionary prima donna, there's a picture of Morrissey,
oh,
right?
he's there. I mean, he's up there, you know. You know, I always say she's a bit of a bitch, but he's a nice guy. You know, as if they're a
Right,
couple, you know, Mr. Mars, nice. He's a nice man. I don't know why he married her.
right, right.
It's just a joke. But
Uh,
it's like when you went to school with somebody, it doesn't matter how big, whatever they do.
yeah,
It's like your family members. It's really important that some people don't see you as a demigod,
right, right,
you know.
right.
But it was quite funny, and I've got to say, when he went on stage, I thought he was funny. I thought he was a great comedian,
Okay.
and to be honest, I liked Johnny's playing. I thought he was a nice, he's like a new wave guitarist to me. You know, a bit of jangle here and there.
Right.
But to me, at my age, I thought, because I was into Korn, I was into Morrison, I thought these are sixth form lyrics. He's fooling all these 50. He's fooling
Uh,
them all with the sixth form lyrics. You know, I know what he's on about here. It's all. But John Peel, if it wasn't for John Peel, there's a lot of artists wouldn't have been
oh,
popularized.
oh,
You know,
oh, you're so right about that.
I mean, you wouldn't have gotten the Fall. Imagine the Fall getting a job on a boat
Oh yeah,
and entertain the people
Marquis
on the boat.
Smith. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
Just
He championed so many bands, even going back to the 70s and late
yeah,
60s. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he did, right.
There's
But
a lot
yeah,
of bands that wouldn't have had a chance
they
to.
wouldn't they wouldn't have. I want to mention one thing about the Smiths. Did you happen to see my interview with, do you know who Ivor Perry is?
You know.
Okay, he was in Easter House. Do you remember the band Easter
Oh,
House?
remember Easter House? Yeah, they were
Yeah.
on the same label as us.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
This been a year, maybe a couple of years ago. Yeah, he was the guitarist with his brother was
yeah.
the singer, but he auditioned for the Smiths at one time.
Wow.
Played guitar, and I think it was later on when they were having Johnny and Morrissey were having some problems, But yeah, I'll send you the link to it so you don't have to scroll.
Yeah,
But yeah, the whole community, the Easter House
yeah,
in Scotland, and
yeah.
the whole that's what they named the band after.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was a rough
yeah.
part of the town.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway, but I was going to ask you too, if it's okay, which we talked about before we started, mention some of my favorite tracks from the early albums, and get your backstories, inspiration, etc. As I
yeah.
say, if you would.
Just quickly,
Sure.
uh, some of the other band I toured with, I
Oh
really
yeah,
like.
do that. I'm sorry, do that.
With I toured with Aztec Camera,
Oh, Roddy, yeah,
and to
yeah.
me, I mean, I met Roddy when he was 17. I still sing a song for him now. At
Uh-huh.
63 years old, I sing. That's how much of an impact he made on me, and he was a fantastic guitarist
Oh yes,
and poet songwriter. We call him the boy wonder.
yes.
He was the boy.
Oh, Walk Out to Winter. That's
Yeah,
one of my favorite,
yeah,
and the extended version. I
yeah.
mean,
He was beautiful. You know, he was beautiful.
yes, he,
Paddy was clever.
right.
The only thing I didn't like so much about Paddy, and I love Paddy,
Yeah.
but there was a bit more when he was younger. There was a bit of more of a pious thing.
Okay.
You know, not conceited, but just it was a bit more aloof. And
Okay.
I didn't like that energy when I was young. I like the opposite. I love Jonathan Richman. I like
Yeah.
people who can laugh at themselves and show their vulnerabilities.
Right.
To me, Roddy Frame was, on my perspective, not everybody's, but as a young songwriter, he was one of the best artist songwriter.
Right. And you're right. And he started out so young too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a dream interview there. But I've been told that he's pretty retiring
uh,
and not really doing interviews and things like that. So
yeah,
that would be, yeah. Uh, well, I showed you this before, but now for the viewers, the first album that I picked up, I still have a copy, is this,
yeah,
and I read it was the limited edition. It was of the two LPs,
yes,
and it has Gladsome Humor in Blue, of course, here, And then
Yeah.
it also has the second LP is Boat to Bolivia, but not the full album. You want me to pull that out too? Yeah.
So it pulls out inside. Yeah, that's unusual.
And it's not the full album. It's 9 out of the 11 or 12 tracks that were on the. There it is. I don't know. There we go. Pull that back some. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the second album. So it's kind of in reverse order.
Yeah.
But it's nice, to get kind of almost 2 complete albums on one, release like that.
Yes.
So that was my first that I picked up, first introduction. And I have to hold this up again. I like the sepia picture on the front, and what it reminds me of. I don't know if this is what you're going for, but what it reminds me of is some of the old sepia classic, blues photos.
Yes.
The blues singers.
Yes.
From the Delta and that kind of thing. Right. And that's what it's like. And if you didn't know this was a more modern picture, you would think it was from back during that time period. Yeah.
Yes. I still know the guy.
Uh-huh.
This is still a friend of me and Anna's, the guy who took that picture, Juan Fitzgerald. He's a close friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he was at, we did a gig last week and he was there taking photographs.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. The sepia look to it. Yeah. So, well, on this, from the first LP, Gladsome Humor in Blue, There Comes a Time. That's one of my favorites. That's of all of the Daintees. I love how the song builds, and it's anyway. What did you have something you wanted to say about that song?
Yeah. I mean, I heard later on the songs that end with a title on the last line are classed as story songs.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how to define it, but I think it is. Ironically, that I wrote the song on a pool table in a recording studio when I was working with a producer. Now, what was his name? Was it Paul Hardiman? I think it was a guy called Paul Hardiman. And he just had a hit with Krista Burr, Lady in Red, and all this. And then we were recording a song called Boat to Bolivia. And what happened was, in England in 1985, we recorded Boat to Bolivia. It came out in 86 as a 10 or 11 track album, like the inner one, as one album.
Right.
Then it did really well in a very short impact bang. So the record company pressurized the manager to get me to write a song called Boat to Bolivia.
Okay.
And I just kind of panicked. I went, oh, right, okay. And I looked at the sleeve. I thought they looked like a South American couple that were going to get married. Boom. Right. Reggae was popular at the time. And I don't know why. I knocked off a reggae song in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So they would leave me alone. It's like the dealer suddenly comes to squeeze you. And so I did that, thinking they'd go away.
Yeah.
And then there was this whole, because they were before the next repress. I mean, it sold a lot of records. They wanted to do a repress pretty quick. So they wanted me to go in the studio and record this, and they would repress it with the song Boat to Bolivia on the album.
Okay.
The original Boat to Bolivia, the song didn't exist.
Oh, right. All right.
It was after it ran out of copies. And then I had a repress. Then I got pressurized from the record company to write a song.
Okay.
And I wrote a song called Boat to Bolivia. I thought, well, title track. That probably got me to the habit of title tracks. And then it went, and then there was this session set up really quickly.
Yeah.
Me and my band, the two brothers, went down to London, and they brought in Paul Hardiman, who had a big hit with Lady in Red. So he was like Mr. Big. They were like, to us, they were like teachers at school. We had this.
Yeah.
And then, they brought a guy called Wicks in, who was Paul McCartney's keyboard player. And there was another guy brought in called Dennis Bovell.
Okay.
So they were going for the big thing. Yeah. The single will make, because see, the guy who owned London Records was from Trinidad. His
Oh.
best mate was Eddie Grant.
Eddie Grant, yeah.
And also him who had Bob Marley's record label, Chris, he was one of them guys, they had a lot of budget and all that. And so he was firing us in there on a big budget thing to do a big single, to do a video, to have a hit and sell a lot more records on the repress. They got a sniff and they wanted to get it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh no. So when we went to the studio, there was something that didn't feel nice, where the manager was like keeping everybody happy,
Right.
don't be hasty, which I can understand. But so when this guy came in, Wicks, and at first it was Dennis Bovell, God love him, who'd been in Matumbi. He was part of the British reggae scene. He's a big wig in the British reggae scene. And me and my two brothers, the Dunn brothers, Gary and Anthony, we go down to the studio in London to do our album. We couldn't take our drummer, which we were upset about that because he's a really good drummer. So I'm saying, this is going to start where they're going to break us up. I said, we're going to have to get really strong here, because I've seen the manager, the divide and conquer.
Yeah.
They'll try and remove me from the band, fast track me with session musicians. But the trouble is, when you do that, the music has no character.
You're right.
It loses all. You need your Michael Stipes. You need you need the Peter Bucks. You can't replace them people because they're soul brothers.
Right.
You need Ringo. Ringo's a bloody good drummer. He's not a bad drummer.
It's a family. It's a family. Family. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we were all in defensive mode.
Right.
And then I tried to Dennis came down to the studio, God bless him. And he has a different memory of it, but my memory is accurate. He came in with a bass guitar. Okay. And it was like, you white boys don't know how to play reggae. And we were like, oh. Because he was like a reggae god, So we had him giving us this. Yeah. But he shot himself in the foot because he was his ego was winding everybody up. And Paul Hardiman pulled me to one side because I was a chief, I was a chief in my band. I wasn't having any. And he said, and I said, I'm not working with Dennis as much as I love him. I'm not working with him. He wouldn't let me bass play bass on his own record. I'm not having that, So it was starting to go into conflict.
That friction.
So they got rid of Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis went out on the first day, gone. Yeah, Dennis says that they stole all of his ideas and parts.
Yeah.
So then there was Wicks. Yeah. And I remember watching, and this is when I fell out with Martin Brammer for a period, and we've repaired our friendship. Because I told this story a few years ago. I told this story on Facebook. And he got upset because Wicks is his mate, because he's session guys and the whole session demo. And we're not like that. And I kind of tried to speak to Wicks, and he just had this. And he reminded me of the blackleggers that were going into the pit when the miners were starving. They didn't have any money for their families. Right. My dad was one of them. And they were going in on the bus, taking the work. And my two boys were standing there, and he was willing to come past us and go, for his session fee. See, I couldn't do that. No, even if I was the most famous session guy, I couldn't come into a young band. This is something I need to share with you. When we did Boat to Bolivia album, the playing on it was so good because we had a 37-year-old drummer, a fantastic drummer. His grandson's my drummer now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Charlie Smith, and his grandfather is in Lindisfarne now. But Paul Smith was our drummer in '95, and he nailed Boat to Bolivia. He was a phenomenal. He'd worked with Shirley Bassey, he'd worked with loads of different people, Tom Jones, all kinds of stuff. When we finished the album, the producer Gil Norton, who went on to do Gomez, loads of big bands, the Pixies, multi-platinum. He went on really well. he said to me, he said, I want your band to come into the studio and record Delamitre's first album.
Oh, one of my favorite bands. Yes,
But
yes.
at the time, they couldn't play very well.
Okay.
They couldn't, and this is off the record.
Yeah.
He offered us to come in because he was having a tough time because they just couldn't play together at the time. They weren't
Right.
together, you know. They looked
Right.
cool and they had
Yeah.
some good half songs, and they were. But
Yeah.
he heard what we achieved as young guys, and he went, "Oh,
Yeah.
these kids can play. Let's just get them in." And I said to him, I said, I couldn't do it because I wouldn't want it done. I would rather do a bad version of a song with these lads than with the.
Right.
So that was the first hint what was to come. And it was always a bit of, that's where I struggled with the majors, because they were always trying to fast track in a very friendly way, you know. But
Uh-huh.
if I had said, all right, we'll get rid of the band, oh, lovely. And
Uh-huh.
that's why I can't, there's certain artists I can't relate to, because they were in a band, but as soon as they got signed, they were off.
Okay, right.
You know, and they have all the session. And it is easy to fast track. I mean, they were going to put me in the studio with Courtney Pine,
Oh,
you know, jazz.
yeah.
What the hell could Courtney do?
Yeah.
But now we stand together still. I've got the two
Yeah.
brothers on each side.
Right.
I've got the drummer's grandson behind us. You know, we're doing the 40th anniversary of Bolivia.
Right.
I don't have a loving relationship with my manager, right? They've gone, these people, they've gone.
Right.
No disrespect to them, but
Yeah.
I've got these lads, and we play. In the other band, Kitchenware, the band Hurrah,
Hurrah, yeah.
the guy Taffy Hughes, who's the psychedelic guitarist in Hurrah, his son Rupert is the son I've never had. He plays with me. When Gary Dunn had cancer, Rupert came in as a 30-year-old guitarist, and he played for 6 months all the Dainty songs.
Did he?
You know, and his dad came to the gig, and you know, we've got this family thing.
That's it. That's it.
But unfortunately, the people who try to break it up, they're not really part of it because they didn't really get it at the time.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. No.
And like you said a while back, family is everything. You know, the community within the, you know.
You're right. You're right. Well, let's do this in order. Yeah. Boat to Bolivia came out first.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, I meant to say the reason that There Comes a Time, I wrote There Comes a Time, is because when we were in that studio, eventually Wicks went in there and he was programming the drums and all this.
Okay.
And the arrangement, the keyboards and all that. We were in the pool room with the door shut, you know, getting vigilant. And that was when I wrote There Comes a Time.
Yes.
On the pool table, because really what There Comes a Time is about is almost like watching your partner be raped.
Okay, right.
That's how important it was, my songs. And that's why I never played Boat to Bolivia, the song.
Okay.
For many years. And then one day I apologized to the song and I said, it's not your fault.
Yeah, right.
And then we embraced it. But that's how deep the scar was, you know. And some people think that's petty, but, you know, so that's where There Comes a Time comes from. And that vigilance and that marching thing. It's anti-industry. It's let's get them.
Very much so. Don't ever turn your back on them. Yeah, those guys. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's do Boat to Bolivia, the great reggae track, like you said, and it's really stood the test of time. My Crocodile Crier. That's another one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah. I especially love the intro. To that song.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That song was written for my grandmother. A lot of those songs on Boat to Bolivia were written between 81 and 83.
Okay.
But by the time it was time to record my first album, that was 1985.
Okay.
So my grandmother died around it. I did 3 gigs with Aztec Camera. And Roddy was 17, I think. And we did Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Dundee. Okay. And he liked the band so much because we had 2 little vintage cars, Ford Anglia, like a Harry Potter car.
Yeah.
And Ford Cortina Mark 1. Yeah. 2-tone, they were like restored cars, and we travelled to me and the guitarist in the Ford Anglia and the drummer and the bass player in the Cortina. We did 3 shows with Roddy Freeman. We used to have little ties on and that. And Roddy was like, "Wow, where are you guys from? What's going on? Do you travel in these 2 cars?" Wow. He says, "Do you want to come up to Aberdeen as well?" He liked the band. He thought we were like quirky, you know. So he gave us £50 out of his own pocket to come and do Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And I think that was on his 18th birthday.
Oh, was it? Oh,
And
wow.
we were just coming up to 20, I think. We're about a year or 2 older than Roddy. And did them 4 shows with him. I went home and I thought that was all I would ever do with music. And my grandmother passed away. And I wrote the song Crocodile Cry for my grandmother. And then not long after that, it was just coming towards Christmas, Roddy got in touch and he wanted us to do another 12 or 13 shows with him. And we toured all over the UK, down to the Lyceum in London. And it was wonderful for us, you know, because to me, they were the best band in the world at the time I stayed camera, to me. So as a 63-year-old now, when I do a gig, if I do Crocodile Cry, I'll sing the song for Roddy. I'll sing it from a 20-year-old to a 17-year-old.
Right. Exactly. Isn't that something, how that works? Yeah. Running Water is another one I really like.
Yeah, that song was written in 1980.
Early, okay.
Yeah, and it was written. I knew a guy called Wink, and he was a bit shifty. He was a bit of an artful dodger.
Yeah.
He came down to my house. My father was at work, and he came down. I was maybe 17. He was maybe about 20, and he wanted to get me to go to Newcastle. He had these like the snap chains, you know, these.
Yes.
We were going to go and steal bicycles from the students.
Wow, really?
And
Really?
pile them in the van. And he was tempting me, really. I'd never done anything like that. And he was like, "You want some Levi jeans? I'll get them for you." So he's like kind of a. I was tempted. I was like, "Oh," because I was like, I had nothing. I was like desperate, and he was just talking me into it. And then my dad's van pulled up. He used to drive a traveling shop, the big Bruff's van. And my dad's he's like a wolf, you know. He come in and he just recognised Wink for what he was. He says, "Who's this?" And I went, "Oh, it's Wink." He went, "Off." Just like that. Yeah. And Wink was off, like he was terrified.
Yeah.
And it was my dad just like taking care of me, like in the moment, like, and I was he just saw there was badness there. He wanted him out of his house. Oof, or it would have been that, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so I wrote not long after Wink got it. He had a balaclava and he borrowed a gun that a friend of mine made, Roy Harrington.
Okay.
It was a replica Roy cooked up in his room.
Yeah.
And him and his friend went to the Washington Services, like a garage, all-night garage, and they turned it over and they said, "Yeah, get the tail, open the tail," you know, they had balaclavas on. And this gun was a replica, and it looked like something from the 1820s. I mean, it was like, it wasn't even, it wasn't a Magnum.
Right.
And the guy at the till absolutely panicked because crime wasn't very high then, you know. And to see the 2 guys in the gun, and he actually had a heart attack on the spot.
Oh, did he?
Died. This is 1980. And as we say in England, it went from shite to cack. He just ended up in a mental hospital. His friend, they got put away. It just was a bad scene, you know. Someone had died, and they were idiots. They were idiots, you know. They'd never done any crime before, and so I wrote a song about that. And I always expected to one day for Wink to turn up and go, "Yeah," or something, you know. But I never saw him, you know. So yeah, that song is 44 years old.
Oh wow. It's something, yeah. Early song. It's fascinating. Don't you find it fascinating how the songs travel through time and how they're still popular? And
if you look at a set list,
yeah, I assume they are. Yeah.
If you look at a set list, like if you see from my perspective, if I put a set list on the monitor, I can, what I sometimes do is I put my age next to the song.
Oh, okay. Right.
So
Right.
that I would have been 19 when I
Yeah.
wrote that, or 18 or 19. Crocodile Crier, 20, 21.
Right.
And it just goes on, like the Salutation Roll,
Yeah.
27, you know, and it gives you a multi-dimensional view of your repertoire, because the earliest song I've written maybe is 45, 46 years old, you know.
Right. Right.
It's until just recently I've written a song that's written recently. So, but the time is like what you say, that the creativity doesn't do time.
Right.
Sunlight, you know.
It doesn't. No, you're right. You're right. You had that in you from an early age, you know. Well, and one other track, Look Down, Look Down. I like the newer live version I saw on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
You know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You
Although
said it looks like you were having.
When you do that song now, you feel like you're going to have a coronary. When we do it, I look around at the guitars and
go. You were having a lot of fun doing that, playing that one. Yeah. But going back to Gladsome Humor and Blue, we talked about There Comes a Time.
yes.
I can see. Okay, now this one's a little more pop, and maybe even a little like Label Mate's Prefab Sprout. On that. Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
Probably. I mean, a bit of Aztec Cameron as well, probably.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
actually, the song is very, very different.
But it's
the message of the song is very mature.
Yeah.
You know, it's about awakening. You know, expanded consciousness. You know, some people can't imagine their consciousness outside of what I call the hard drive.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I like that.
People think this is to me, the real brain is the heart, and the stomach.
I agree.
This is the hard drive, but then there's the expanded consciousness. You know, like Barbara Ann Brennan said, like your physical body, to me, that's a vehicle, and you're Greg.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, you're Greg, but you're also an angel with the Greg gig.
Yeah. Right.
So the Greg car, the angel motorist gets in and is driving the Greg car, but the light is within you and without you.
Right. As long as my angel has a driver's license, I'll
exactly. Yeah. Well, the part of you that doesn't have the driver's license that you have to manage every moment, that's your ego.
There you go. Yeah.
When I'm in my car, if I'm not careful, my ego can trick me into thinking I'm Bruce Willis. Hey, that's not me. If I'm not careful,
right.
You've got to watch it, haven't you? That you don't. Your ego is like your worst friend. It'll like trick you into having a conflict, or then you have to take responsibility for that conflict.
Right.
You've brought it into being. You know.
Yeah.
That's why. Mindfulness, the mindful breath, the meditation is so important before you make any decisions.
Right, exactly. You know, I did an interview with Russ Ballard. You remember with Argent, and he was in the other bands before that too, and his solo material. And he talked about doing breathing exercises.
Absolutely.
You know, he said, just be conscious of that. Just sit and just breathe in and breathe out. You know, absolutely. He said that's a good thing to do every day. You know that. Well, the old church is still standing. That one has a nice gospel kind of feel to it with the backing vocals on that. Yeah.
Yes. And it's like if I was to meet Jesus, I always imagine what Jesus would say. He would say, I never said that, Martin. That wasn't
right.
That was the management.
Right.
It was the management.
Exactly.
Not me. That's not.
Yeah.
And I would look at the church, and like the church is like a venue for human defined activity.
Right.
And there's certain things I love about. I was brought up a Catholic, and I was programmed to a degree. That's why I chose Captain Beefheart as a deterrent.
Okay.
in my programming,
Okay.
reprogramming, just to give them a bit of shit in there. But to me, it's important to. I mean, like the ritual. I respect anybody with faith. Anybody that trusts and believes, and if it's helping them. But to me, the church itself, I wanted to write a song for the building.
Yeah.
Not little nod to the priests, but to the venue. Not Harvey Goldsmith.
Right.
The actually walls of the venue and the stage. Like Anna used to work with Lindsay Kemp, the famous dancer,
Okay.
And sometimes at the end of these huge shows, Lindsay would do a bit of sweeping up, and nobody would know that he'd been the star. He would just he would do a bit of sweeping up at the end on the stage.
Be cleaning up, right.
Just to respect where he's just.
That's right.
All his light,
Right. Kind of keep you grounded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be. You have to be in touch with that,
Absolutely.
Where you came from and all that. Well, Even the Night. Now that's an original. That's an original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking of Because the Night. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Patti Smith.
Patti Smith, right?
Which is Bruce Springsteen wrote it, didn't he?
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking of when I first saw that. I said, no, this is a different song. Yeah. A beautiful ballad. Beautiful ballad.
Yeah, I don't know where them songs come from, but it was, being at that time, I've got to tip my hat to my band because they were all young men. And I was taking songs like that into the rehearsal room saying, oh, we're going to do this. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
What's that? Is that not a Glenn Miller song? No.
Right. Yeah.
But that's where me and Paddy did connect because Paddy was into Stephenson, Diamond.
Yeah.
The great songwriters and that. And he respect me being able to write a song like that. But I never planned it. I didn't mean to. It just come in. So, but I would sit and listen to the radio, listen to all kinds of stuff. And you must soak it up as well.
Yeah, you do. You do. You're a sponge, as you said. You are a sponge. Nancy, that's a great track. I really like that one, Nancy.
It's about teenage female rebellion.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's a dad talking to his daughter. Yeah. But at the time, I wasn't the dad. I've got two daughters now, but at the time, I wasn't the dad. So I was imagining being a dad. I was imagining how hurtful it would be if your daughter becomes a bit of a bohemian and she rejects you.
Right.
She's not following your teachings.
Right. You were in training. You didn't realize it, but you were in training. Well, moving on to a Salutation Road.
Yeah.
I like this one. This kind of play on words. In the heel of the night.
Heel of the night.
In the heat of the night. In the heel of the night.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the heat of the night. It's I mean, that's a channel song, and that's the spirits of Northumbria.
Yeah.
Or the ancient. In a way, it's a bit of a pop at the Roman culture that came over to my island and enslaved us.
Oh, yeah.
Made us have these little square houses made out of brick. Made all the roads straight.
Yeah.
They only got so far up the road to Scotland and that to turn around. It was a bit too much for them, The roads get a bit curvier again up in the Highlands. Someone even found a tablet. It was like the original email, of its time.
Yeah.
The Roman centurion writing back to Italy saying, get me out of this godforsaken place. The men are covered in mud and they're wild. They're coming from all angles.
Right.
Cold.
Right.
Get me back to Italy, get me out of here.
Speaking of the comedic angle on that, I always love to watch The Life of Brian.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and some of the liberties they take doing that movie.
It's such a great communion humor, though, isn't it? Like the greats from America, the greats from Britain.
Right.
That fusion, transatlantic mix is wonderful, man.
Exactly. Like Terry, what is his name? Terry Gilliam. Originally from Minnesota. He lives there forever. He's lived there forever. But putting in his artwork, his cartoons and that kind of stuff. Yeah. it just all came together. They appreciate each other. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Long Hard Road. I like the lyrics, but I like the trumpet. I like the trumpet in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was produced by a guy I really like, a guy called Pete Anderson.
Okay.
Pete was a whole different kettle of fish. He would embrace your band and he would bring in some guys, but he would always respect your family, you know. And he came over to, because he worked closely with Michelle Shocked. And there's some of Michelle Shocked's band playing on Salutation Road, and
Oh, okay.
Jeff Donovan, Skip Edwards on keyboards. Still got the two brothers playing on it, you know, and that. But he was a fantastic producer. He did Dwight Yoakam as well.
Okay, right. On to my two favorites on Salutation Road, and I can't really decide which I like the best. Some days I like one, other days, depending on my mood, I like the other. Spoke in the Wheel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of us listening to the lyrics in that can really relate. Really, really.
Ah, that's nice. Yeah, and it's describing the indescribable, really.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. Putting it into words. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of us can relate. And then We Are Storm.
Yes.
Well, you want to talk about You Belong to Blue, or did you want to mention a couple of the maybe unique places that you've recorded albums?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked all over, really.
Some of the unique places, like you were recorded in a lighthouse.
Yes. Yeah, I did an album called what was it called again? God, there's that many bloody albums. Yeah, there was when I moved up to Rossshire, there was a lot of musicians were talking about this mad musician who lived in a lighthouse on the most northerly tip of the Highlands. And
Yeah.
one musician said to me, "Don't go there. He's
Right.
into mind control. He's like Alistair Crowley. He'll get you. He'll
Yes.
put something in the food. Don't go there, you know." But I kept seeing a lot of his equipment in this old-fashioned equipment. I thought he was called Johnny Fats.
Okay.
And it kind of, and then one day I got a chance to go up. I met his son, who'd been playing drums since he was 9. This kid with glasses. And he was 21. He's called Isaac Sutherland. And I made friends with Isaac. And he says, "Oh, my old man wants to meet you." It's called The Wheel of Fortune, I think, the album.
Oh,
and I went up there, and honestly, it was like meeting Dr. Evil. It was hilarious. It was like a bald man in black.
Yeah. Oh,
He was
was
like
he?
a cross between Johnny Cash, Alistair Crowley,
Oh,
and
really?
Alistair Sim,
Oh, Sim.
the British comedian actor, you know.
Yeah.
He was just like a very odd, and he was sitting stroking a white cat.
Wow.
And I went into this lounge, and there was a fire on. And as I looked out the window, I could see the sea. They were on the end of the land, and I could see the old man of Hoy across the sea,
Right.
Orkney.
Oh, wow.
So at
Right.
the top of Scotland,
Yeah.
looking across the sea out the lounge,
Yeah.
and the old guy sitting smoking, stroking the cat, and he went, "I knew you were coming." Like some kind of Bond villain. He was like a Bond villain.
Dr. No.
And I said, "Yeah, you knew I was coming because Isaac told you." And he just laughed.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Getting on really well, and did an album up there. I spent 6 months up there. I commuted out because I was like an hour south.
Yeah.
Because I live in Rossshire.
Yeah.
That's north of Inverness. You know, I'm 30 miles north of Inverness.
Okay.
And then Rossshire goes into Sutherland, and then Sutherland goes into Caithness. They're like states, you know.
Oh, all right. All
And
right.
they're wild. I mean, Sutherland's one of the least populated parts of Europe. It's you go through there. They've just got single track roads. It's just like one road. That's it.
Right. Okay. Well, I wanted to mention, I listened to You Belong to Blue, and I like the album. I do like it. And it mentions, some of the songs on there I like. Broken Nights, Faded Cities. This one takes me back to the 70s.
Wow.
That great jazzy guitar, a la Steely Dan,
Yeah.
and your vocals to me. Are you familiar with Mark Almond, the band?
Mark Almond.
Not the singer, not the Mark Mark. It was
Oh no.
John Mark, John
No.
Mark. Um, they were go and I'll send you a link. They had some good material, but your voice reminds me very much of John Mark.
Wow.
He was the Mark in Mark Almond, but it's
Okay.
Jonmark. And
Yeah.
your vocals, because they did kind of the jazzy kind of they were a British band,
Oh. Oh.
not hugely popular. They were pretty much underrated, but had
Yeah.
some good material in the
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
Anyway, it reminds me of that, and it could have been a Mark Almond song. This
Wow.
Broken Nights, Faded Cities. In fact, they had a song called "The City," which is
Ah.
one of their best tracks. And that's
Oh, I
one.
think I might have heard that before. Da, da,
Okay,
da, 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 da,
okay.
da, 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 da. Oh
You
no,
might
that's Stevie Wonder.
no,
That.
that's a different one.
In the city.
But in a jazzy vein. But I'll send you I'll try
Yeah,
to send that to you, and just
yeah.
listen to your vocals too.
I
But that's
put
what.
that whole album down. I went to a studio in Newcastle called Blank Studios,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
they've got a nice big live room with a big glass window.
Yeah.
And I paid for the whole recording myself, but I was careful with the budget, because we're not flying in budgets. We've got to be very careful of what we do.
Yeah.
So I booked the studio for 5 days,
Yeah.
and I had young Charlie Smith, my drummer now. He's only 23, and he's so proud because he's going to be playing on albums his grandfather played on. And he just recently put a clip of the Daintees on the old grey whistle test with his grandfather.
Oh, did he? Oh,
And
wow.
last week we played in Newcastle, and he's playing it, and it was filmed. And I filmed it, and he put the two alongside of each other. So his grandfather, almost
Oh, great
30,
whistle. The great whistle.
34 years ago.
Yeah.
It was 1986,
Yeah.
and there's Charlie playing along with his grandfather.
Right
He's
there.
so
Wow.
proud of it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's a phenomenal drummer. He's outstanding. And so he set up his lovely drum kit. We put some old mics, sounded lovely. And I was through the glass
Yeah.
with just a mic, and I just used the guitar that was in the studio, tuned it up,
Right.
dialed in a preset,
Right.
and says, right, this is the first song. He played it to him a little bit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a bit slow." Oh, I don't think so. We're having a bit of an argument. Oh, go on, we'll put it up about 2 BPM. That's the compromise. We're having like a.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
say, right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a guide vocal with the rhythm guitar.
Right.
And we nailed it first time.
Yeah.
We did the whole album like that. Negotiations, arguments. It should be more 60s. I says, what do you know about the fucking 60s?
Yeah. Right.
It was just for fun, And we worked from 10 till 4 in the afternoon, 2 days, and the whole album was done. Brought the bass player in the next day. Charlie's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bass player the next day did the whole album in a day.
In a day. Wow. Yeah.
Then the guitarist came in. I kept 2 days for the guitarist
Uh-huh.
because the guitars are very important.
Yes. So,
and the first song, Broken
yeah.
Nights and Faded Cities, that was the first song I put up on the board, and he
Yeah.
only had a lovely little Fender amp, and it was breaking up a little bit, and he had it in the big room with a mic, couple of mics on it, the
Yeah.
cable coming through, so he could sit with his cup of tea
Yeah.
in a nice chair and
Right.
tell me off, the engineers there, and it was such a delightful way to work. And I said, right, this is the first song, Gary. It's in the key or whatever. I just told him the key. He didn't know what was ahead of him.
Mhm.
I said, you just get warmed up, get in tune. He had this lovely Gibson semi-acoustic, and he was playing along. And I said, let's just take it back again. I just want to make sure everything's okay mix-wise. But I'm winking at the engineer, record. And Gary's totally unaware. He's thinking that they're just testing it out. I says, you play along.
Yeah.
And everything he plays is in that record.
Right. Really nice.
All I had to do was snip a few things out.
Uh-huh.
during the verse parts.
Yeah.
Just a couple of little bits. The whole solo he's never played it again.
Right. Really, really nice on that. But again, it harkens back for me that 70s kind of sound on that one. Sweet September Rain.
Yeah.
That's an all-around great track. I think that's hit material. I think that can be a hit.
I mean, you're the only person that's really heard this, Greg. I sold maybe 150 copies to my hardcore audience.
Right.
And then I haven't done anything else with it. I just
people have been to Bandcamp. That's where I listen to.
Yeah, it's up on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
But you're the first kind of broadcaster that's took any interest.
Okay, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, can
I'm not.
Can I do this? Can I do this?
I think you should. Yeah. If I could reach, I would give you a good.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you reach?
But in a way, it makes more sense, and that's why I like the fact that you've took the initiative to get in touch.
Right.
That means more to me on a universal level than some PR guy you're paying that's going PR pushing you on people. I'd rather it be found by people.
Well, I'm a music fan, so it's universal to me, like you said, But I think that song, if it gets enough plays, I think it could be a hit. I mean, I think it's got all the elements.
Yeah, it's got that Spectre type drums, hasn't it? And
yeah, it does. It does.
Again, Little Charlie did that first take. He was arguing. That was the one he was arguing.
No, was it?
It should be more 1960s, What do you know about the 60s?
Right. Oh God. And I have to confess, I'm an Anglophile. I really am. Most of my music, well, early on, in the 80s, I was just grabbing everything from the UK. I mean, everything from over there. And then later on, as I began to kind of broaden my scope, I went back and picked up on more American, domestic stuff. But early on, I was just everything from the UK.
Yeah.
I just love, especially during the 80s.
You see, I would have been doing the opposite. Most of the acts that changed my life. Well, as a much younger person, the Doors, I was never a massive Beatles fan.
Oh yeah, I wasn't either.
I mean, I like the Stones.
Yeah,
I like the immaturity of the Stones.
Yeah. I think it goes to shows that old adage: the grass is always greener, right?
Yeah.
On the other side of the pond, right?
But genetics, man. It's only a hop, man. It's nothing. I mean, I never thought I'd end up in what happened when not MySpace, e-groups started, which was one of the first forms of kind of MySpace e-groups. I went totally AWOL. I was off radar.
Yeah.
And I wanted nothing to do with any industry at all. I was total hardcore. I wasn't even that bothered about. I mean, I was sustaining myself with music, and there was a woman got in touch with me. She was called Jane Cooper, and she was a scientist. So in 1999, it was early. It was about 96, maybe 97. This e-groups thing started, and she started looking for me online. And she eventually tracked us down. She'd started this e-group, and there was only 3 people in the group. It's amazing. There was her, she's called Jane Cooper. There was a guy called Russian Cyril, which is a guy called Cyril from Russia, right? They were the only other 2 Daintees fans she could find, and a guy called Dolphus Ramseur, who has Ramseur Records now, right? Who manages the Avid Brothers.
Oh, okay.
But at that time, he was a fan of the Daintees. Now, the only reason he was a fan of the Daintees is because I did the tribute to the Reverend Gary Davis.
Yes.
And he was from Concord, North Carolina. He was very proud of Concord, North Carolina. And that was the only thing that he was a Bunnymen fan, really. He was a retired tennis player who was looking for something to do. So we started this e-group, and I said to the group, it got 3 people, 5 people, 10 people. It was very early days. And I said, look, I'm going to join the group. I'm going to, because I don't believe in the demigod. So I'm going to jump down from the pedestal and get in there, and we'll all join it. But what I can do is bring music.
Right. There you
So
go.
I'll do an album called The Lilac Tree. So we did this. I
Right.
did this album called The Lilac Tree. By
Yeah.
this time, the group had gone up to about 100 people.
Uh-huh.
And there was some very interesting cookies on that. We even brought Russian Cyril over to Scotland.
Yeah.
Adolphus Ramseur came over. I went over there to North Carolina and recorded this quadruple album called The Hint of the Budded Rose, researching North Carolina musicians. Charlie Poole in the North Carolina. All this mushroomed out of all of this stuff, right?
Charlie Poole, yeah.
But Ramseur was a real head. Years later, Ramseur said to me, because we always kept in touch, and he was a bit of a funny cat. Like when I went over to North Carolina, I was done with music, and he would take me into these like radio stations, and he'd say, "I've got Martin Stephenson here from England." And you can see the girl filing her nails, thinking, "Yeah," and he's a singer-songwriter, and and she says, "Just put your tape in the box, please." Nobody give a shit who or where it was, And I'm saying, "Dolph, it's all right. You don't have to. I'm
You don't have
done.
to do that.
I'm a veteran. I'm on the other side." But I loved his. He had this enthusiasm, and he kind of fired me up again because of his love for music. And he was into Sammy Walker, all the guitar pickers and all that, And we become really close, me and Dolph. And one day he phoned me up with his father-in-law was a Crow Indian. His wife was a Crow Indian, and I'd gone and stayed with him and everything. And he was a millionaire, his father-in-law. And what happened was he passed away, and they'd been doing this thing called venture capital. And Dolph was panicking; he didn't know what to do. He was maybe 27 years old. He says, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, you were talking about having your own little record label. Why don't you do something like that?" Because he's like you; he knew his music, and so he found this little band, the two brothers that lived near him, and they would travel like hundreds of miles for a $50 gig. They were just relentless, and that was Dolph's medicine, is relentlessness.
Oh, okay.
And it was the Avid brothers.
Oh, it was okay.
And they started off right. I mean, they were like a bad version of the Violent Femmes when they started off. They were all over the place, like
Yeah.
And I came over to Washington D.C. I did a house concert with him, and the guitarist that was with me says, "They're rubbish." I said, "They're not rubbish. They're spiky, they're just interesting."
Right.
But
Right.
Dolph believed in them so much, and it just went up. Then he would send us photographs. They were playing to 500 people, 600 people, 2,000, 14,000. I mean,
it just started blowing up like that.
And now he plays golf with T-Bone Burnett, and he's the big cheese. And I guarantee you, can your people put me in touch with Dolph? I'm a little guy from England. Well, we'll see.
T-Bone, diamonds are a girl's best friend. I remember that track. Yeah,
great song.
Well, you mentioned I wasn't going to go into your solo material, but when you mentioned Lilac Tree, Newfound Light, that's that I remember
that's
from
an important song. That
yes.
They're cosmic songs, they have no need in them. There's no need in them songs. They're songs of love, and they're cosmic songs. They're loaded with light, love, and light.
I wanted country flavor on What Makes Annabelle Sad is nice.
Yeah. And and I like Gary's guitar playing on that's very nice.
Right.
Doing that.
Right.
And a Clarence Whitey type thing.
Yeah, it is a birdsy kind of. Yeah, it is. And When Will You Be Mine? This is one I listened to the guitar riff on this, and I'm like racking my brain. I'm like, that reminds me of some other song, an older song, and I couldn't. It took me an hour. I can't, when you know a song and you just can't think. You keep humming that guitar riff.
Yeah.
And you know what it reminds me of? And it's not a song I particularly liked. But do you remember Queen of Hearts, Juice Newton? Do you remember that?
No.
Oh, you don't remember that? Okay. It was a big hit here. An American kind of country
Oh, playing with the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah.
Well, I heard Dave Edmonds do a version of it.
Okay. That's what I was thinking first. I said, it sounds kind of rock pile-ish, kind of
Yeah.
Nick Low-ish, like that. And I said, but I went through all of their songs and I'm like, no, it's not a guitar riff on there, but it's that Juice Newton's Queen of Hearts. Queen of Hearts.
See, when I did that one, I told Gary, because I used to take the mickey out of these like women in the newspaper that said, I dreamt last night and I slept with Elvis and I'm carrying Elvis's love child, after he's died,
Yes.
And I used to laugh about stuff like that. And then one night, because I used to work with these hardcore rockabillys.
Right.
What I do as an artist, because I can play Chet Atkins guitar.
Oh, Chet
I've
Atkins.
educated myself in lots of ways. I can interact on a broad spectrum of genres,
Yeah.
And I've got rites of passage with these hardcore rockabillys who are masters of between 53 to 57. They're like doctors of rockabilly.
Yeah.
They look fantastic. They do it all the right way. They've got the vintage mics.
Yeah.
If it's 1958, they don't want to know.
They don't want to know anymore.
I did a Man Called Horse thing. I did the right to they hung me up by the nipples for 3 days to force me with sticks to see if I was genuine. They allowed me into the tribe,
Yeah,
right. I started writing songs. Then you have this vacuum of these masters who can make that sound.
Right.
And you can write songs and you can get that. They're phenomenal, these people. They're just like catch crops that have popped up 40, 50 years too late,
Yes.
And I was saying one night I had a dream and I dreamt I was at school and I was like, Buddy Holly was my best mate. And it was like so real. Mean, then the nurse comes, But I said it was so real. I was laughing at myself. But during the dream, I said to Buddy, I said, look, people are going to laugh at me when I wake up if I tell my mates that I met you in a dream last night. He says, I know. I said, well, you're going to help me. You're going to help me. He says, I tell you what, he said, I'm going to give you a song. And he says, if you find somebody who knew me, who was my age, they will know when they hear that song that you know me, that you've met me. They'll know, because I'm going to put something in that song that would be invisible, even to fans.
Right.
So I got this song called You Can't Fool Love, right? Which is you can't fool love. You can try as hard as you like. You can't fool love. Love will make it all right. Love is smart. Love has a heart. Love can dissolve all pain. If you were smart, get to the start. Come on, get out of that race. You can't fool love. And I was telling Gary this story about this song. And he's like, wow, it does sound Buddy Holly. And I said, that's what I want you to do on this song you're talking about. Just give it a bit of Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
On the song
When Will You Be Mine?
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking more Buddy Holly, actually.
Yeah. And that's probably where she got her influence from, doing that. Queen of Hearts. Yeah. I think a lot of it
come from Buddy, like,
a lot of it came from me. Yes, you're right. And Clear Blue Sky of Better Days has that Caribbean kind of reggae feel to it. Yeah.
I mean, that one, I was down in Dundee and we did a beautiful festival on the quay.
Yeah.
And I had this trombone player during the lockdown.
Yeah.
I have a friend and he's a surgeon. Well, he's a retired pathologist.
Yeah.
He's called Bruce Mickey. He's a wonderful man. He's one of these people that's so natural. He looks a bit like Jim, what they call it, the comedian,
Jim Carrey.
Right, Jim Carrey. He's got that he's annoyingly good.
Yeah.
Right. And he doesn't try. And he took the trombone up when he was 21. And so what I would do is I would work with a lot of artists who live near where I live,
Yeah.
help them record their music to keep them out of trouble with debt.
Okay.
So I wouldn't charge them for their music, and I'd record it at home.
Yeah.
Then I would send certain tracks down to Perth, which is a few hours down the road. I would just email a WAV file of a mix and say, "Oh, Bruce, could you do something on this?" And I'd go, "Oh yeah, I can hear that one, yeah." And he's got this beautiful house. He's retired, you know.
Yeah.
And he'd go in the kitchen, and the basset hound. He's got a basset hound. It would go and sit in the hoof in the lounge. It hates the brass instruments. And he can play trombone, baritone sax, tenor, trumpet. And what he'll do is he's got a multi-track recorder. So he put the WAV on.
Okay.
He'd record the trombone and the baritone and the sax, and he'd do a whole horn section for it.
Yeah.
So I'd be sitting up the road, and he'd say, "Right, I've done it. Yeah, here comes the baritone, popping through in the box." Boop, boop, boop. So then I open up the project in Logic, drop them all in, mix them.
All right.
And I've got a horn section. It would have cost me a fortune.
Yes, it would.
And I can say to some young songwriter, "Look, there's a horn section on you." It's like, "Oh, wow." You know, and it was all because of him.
Right.
And so, in fact, he'd done such a good service for us and other people. He was so kind, didn't charge anything. There was no money involved, you know, which was a lovely feeling.
Right.
And
well,
we did. So I invited him to come and play a festival with us. We played this lovely festival in Dundee. And as we'd come off the stage, we were walking along. He looked at the sky, and there was me and Anna and him. The three of us were walking like that with our arms around each other.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, there's a clear blue sky of better days," you know.
Yeah.
And I just hugged him. I said, "I'm going to write a song called."
There you go. There's the song. Right. Right. Well, see that karma is it came back to him. It came back.
Yeah. He's a good man.
One last track on there that I really appreciate, Echoes and Ripples. The last.
Oh, thank you.
A great way to end the album. A lot of elements working in that one, and I like the flute especially because it gives it kind of a folkiness. You know.
I'm going to tell my friend Tony Stephenson that'll mean so much to him, because Tony's sister, Anne Stephenson, we're no relation, but Tony's sister played violin on The Weight, on the song The Weight on Gladstone Urine Blue. Right. But she was in a band. I met her when she was working with Virginia Astley. I used to play guitar with Virginia Astley.
Yeah, Astley, yeah.
And now Anne Stephenson was in the Communards. She worked with Mark Armand.
Okay.
She with every Terry Hall, all loads of artists she played. She's a great fan. And Tony will work with the Wooden Tops, a band called the Wooden Tops.
Oh, the Wooden Tops. Yeah. I did a written interview with Rollo McGinty. Yes, a while back. Yes.
He's a character.
He's a nice guy, though.
He's a good man. Yeah. But Tony spent a lot of time with them. And now Tony does a little bit of tech work for me, and we get together. He's in Bristol. So if I fly down to Bristol, I see Tony. And when I was doing that song, I found out, I didn't realize that Tony was a classical whistle recorder player. He kept it all quiet.
Right.
And so I think he played a recorder on that. I think it was a recorder.
I get those because those are so similar. I get it.
The wooden,
I like
very
the
soft sound. And,
the recorder too. Yeah. So whatever it is, it's effective.
Yes. That'll mean a lot to him, because he really does stuff like that. Yeah.
But it does. It brings that folk sound, to that out. One more question I do want to ask you is the 505s. Is it 5005s or 505?
Well,
okay.
I'm such a stupid man. I didn't know how to write down 505s.
Oh,
I wrote it down as 5,000.
Okay, it is 5,000.
But I just left it on there.
Okay, so it's really 505. 505.
It's actually, there's an electric bass guitar by Hofner.
Okay.
It's Stu Sutcliffe and the Beatles used to play.
Yeah.
Called the Hofner 505.
Okay.
And I actually have a 1959 version of it. There you go, the Hofner. Oh, well, that's not the Hofner.
No, that's not it. But this is the Hofner Blue Notes.
Fantastic.
Chris Rea. You remember Chris Rea?
absolutely.
And he put this package together, and it's very retro. It's got some of the early pictures, and it even goes through history of the Hofner on
Yes,
this. And he's got like CDs in here, and he's also got like a couple of vinyl albums, and it's
yeah.
done like a real retro. Anyway, I
He's
just
a
had that.
clever lad, Chris. He's
Yeah,
a
Chris.
clever lad, you know.
Yeah.
Charlie's granddad used to play with Chris as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, because
Anyway,
they're from the same area, you know.
I just happen to have that right there.
But yeah, the
So
505.
505. Okay.
I was given that guitar by a very good friend of mine who we were a couple for 10 years, but we moved apart. And she handed me that bass, and it was a lady called Helen McCookery who was in the band called the Chefs,
Oh, okay.
and they were part of the Brighton punk scene.
Okay.
They
Okay.
were very, very unusual band. I heard that bass on the radio when I was 17.
Uh,
And it was a geeky song called 24 Hours. It was like new wave pop, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it changed my life when I heard that song. And when later in life, when I met Helen, I said, "Oh, what what were you thinking of when you wrote that song?" She says, "Well, we were trying to copy I Feel Love by Donna Summer, and we just made an absolute pig's ear of it, you know. We got it totally wrong." I said, "By golly, you did.
Yeah.
You got that wrong."
Right.
But it sounded like a really original. I remember John Peele playing it, and it was like, wow. And she became a kind of darling of the John Peele show. And we did a lot for each other, me and Helen, on our journey when we knew each other. And she had to be in that bass, and it was like, it meant a lot to me from my youth, you know.
Yeah.
So that album, the 505s, are kind of named after that bass guitar,
Okay. Well,
which is a 1959.
right. When I listen to Tune Happy, when I listen to it, I
Uh,
want to go grab my surfboard and go hang 10. Yeah. If I knew how to surf. If I
well, none of the Beach Boys did, neither did they? It was only the
no,
drummers.
that's right. You don't have to. You don't have to know how. Right? You can
I
sing
love that
about
thing when they try to force Brian Wilson out surfing. He's like, oh, he's got the hair down.
Right, right, right. It does recall some of those surf songs. Yeah, really. But that's nice. That's nice you did that. It's nice you did that. Well, uh, real quickly, a hybrid society.
Yeah,
I like the title. I really like the title.
yes,
You know, it's really
yeah,
apropos today. You and Spider McKenzie.
yes.
Yeah. And tell the viewers who Spider is.
Oh,
Those
yeah. Spider McKenzie is probably one of Scotland's most beloved. Well, there's a few of them, but he's up there.
yeah,
He's a high level harmonica player.
yeah.
He played in a lot of good blues bands like Mojo Pep and all that, so he can tear it up. But to
Yeah.
me, he's a much more sophisticated harmonica player. He's eloquent, you know.
Right.
I've known Spider nearly 25 years, and we were both very, when we were younger. You
Yeah.
know, I'm sorry, actually, I've known him longer because I'm 27 years sober now.
Yeah.
But one of the last gigs I played with Spider, we were both away with it, and we were chasing each other around the pillars of the venue, you know. And he got sober as well, so we're both very strict on our sobriety. And
Wow.
doing
Wow.
that with Spider was something I wanted to share with him as a songwriter, because he's such a great sideman and musician, and he works with some other good artists. But I just put a bunch of my songs together as an excuse
Yeah. Yeah.
to, in fact, some of the songs I put on there I should really use for a new Daintees album, but I decided to me and Spider did a few dates together, so I just put Hybrid Society together as an excuse
Yeah. Yeah.
for us to have something out there while we went out and did some shows together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, he can really wail away. There's a one song in particular on there. He really shows his harmonica chops, I guess you could say,
Yes.
you know. But then there are others, like you said, that he's more, softer,
Yes, and he can play jazz and he can play anything. He's a very humble guy, very tall, nice man, very nice man. He comes to America once a year as well. He travels around with his friends.
Oh,
There's one of them was over in the summer. I'm forgetting his name now, but he's been around a long time, and he's written some songs with some famous songwriters, and so he's well plugged in. He potter around, you know.
Okay. Well, yeah, that'd be nice to be able to see him maybe sometime. Well, that's like I said, we've run a little long on this, but again, it's all really interesting to hear your stories and just to relate and just talk on this level about music, which is
Yes.
what I love anyway. So
Yes.
it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer for me. It's a no-brainer. Maybe I finally found a what you might call a calling,
Yeah.
to be able to do this, and it's going to be there. That's the thing about recording.
Yeah.
It's going to be there for future generations.
Yes. And the great thing is, it's never been a better time for, around the world, being able to communicate.
That's right.
Travel, yeah.
That's right. And that's what I enjoy. So
what we've got in common, Greg, is we're still doing it when there's absolutely no reason to do it.
Yeah.
That's
right.
what we have.
So keep
what I love is being in a position where I don't have to ask anybody for permission to do something for free.
Right.
I need that right. Because
Exactly.
sometimes many times things come up where monetization has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And if it's just the sake of somebody that can't afford something, I'll do it. I'd rather do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. All right, then, Martin. Again, all the best to you. And I hope you have a great Christmas and holidays.
Thank you, Greg.
And a New Year's, but I will talk to you before then, for sure.
Right back at you, Greg. God bless me. Lovely to meet you.
All right. God bless you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.